vibe. Come let we lime, come let we vibe. Lime vibe. Lime vibe.
So welcome once again to another Lime Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Yori Kemp, and I'm here with my guest, Mr. Steve Russell. He is the director of the Caribbean Literary Conference in Los Angeles, California. How are you, Steve?
I am doing good, doing great. Pleasure to be here, Yuri.
So how's weather over there in Los Angeles? This is raining or very warm?
It's not what we're accustomed to. We've been getting a lot of rains, and it's a first in a long time that we've actually had a full winter. Normally, by the time January comes around, it's all summer, spring kind of weather. But this year has been a little bit different. Lots of rains.
Yeah, lots of rain. So is that good for the farmers over there in Los Angeles or what? In California?
I think it's a combination of both, because we've been getting so much that there have been some flooding in some places and stuff like that, but we still aren't able to really, capture most of it like we need, because as the weather changes, you'll hear that California is in drought and stuff like that. So hey, we give thanks for what we get when we get it.
Yeah, it's that climate change, man. Climate change is really affecting everyone everywhere, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So Steve, tell me a little about this Caribbean Literary Conference. You're in your 9th year now, aren't you?
Not quite ninth. Caribbean Literary Conference, CARICON. We've been around since 2021 as CARICON. Prior to 2021, we were Caribbean Literary Festival, CaliFed. And so this is technically our third here as CARICON, but we have been doing Caribbean literature for the last 6 years.
6 years. Okay, I got you. So it's not quite 9 years. So the Caribbean Literary Conference is only about 3 years old. My apologies. I didn't do my research properly, Steve. So tell me what the CARICON is all about, though.
Well, CARICON is one of 3 events that kicks off Caribbean American Heritage Month celebration in Southern California. We go the first weekend, and then the second weekend you have the Hollywood Awards and the film festival. And then, of course, there is no Caribbean party without the music. So on the 4th weekend, we have the Hollywood Carnival. And so those 3 events come together to celebrate Caribbean American Heritage Month, which is celebrated in the United States, June each year. Well, go ahead.
No, I said, how big has this grown over the last 3 years, though? How big has it grown?
Well, I would say over the last 6 years, because as we're saying, it's a transition. The conference has grown. One of the things that happened to us during COVID is that it forced us to expand beyond the boundaries of LA and stuff like that. And so we had people from France, UK, across the Caribbean who participated in the conference. Particularly, we're able to give a voice to authors from the Caribbean who are most times overlooked by the local book festivals and other literary events that happens. And so by being online, we're able to bridge that gap and also bring their work to our audience and vice versa.
I got you. So how's the marketing been going for you? Because you said you get people from all over the world, from France, I guess from Canada, I guess from probably the United Kingdom as well, maybe Spain. Am I correct in saying?
Yeah, it's and even in the southern region, like Panama, we've had people from places like those, Aruba, the difference is now we're back on the ground. And so the focus this year will be on our local base, our LA, I would say California to an extent. Because the last time we had it on the ground, we have people from Northern California coming down, people from Nevada, Arizona, and stuff like that. So we're shoring up our local base on the ground, and we're also having some inputs from people coming in from the Caribbean and from Canada. We have the Bahamas will be represented this year.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I fail to remember that you're from the Bahamas.
Yes, I
Yeah,
am.
we have Heather Thompson, who is a storyteller and a retired judge, attorney, from the
Okay.
Bahamas. She'll be making the trip because she would like to check out California, check
Mm,
out CARICON, and also participate in some of the programming that we have on the ground leading up to the conference, which entails communicating with community groups,
okay.
local nonprofit and stuff like that. So
Mm.
yeah, so we have a robust program on board for CARICON 2023.
Okay, that's good. That's good. You know, when I first heard about CARICON, I was kind of taken aback because I said a Caribbean Literary Conference in California. My thing is, how's that going to work? Why is it in Miami, Florida, or at least Fort Lauderdale, Florida? You know, or maybe even New York, because most of the Caribbean people are on the eastern coast, aren't they?
And that's exactly what we thought. Why not Los Angeles? Well,
Mm,
here's the thing. We are particularly positioned
mm,
because while we're on the West Coast, and yes, there's a smaller amount of Caribbean expats on this side.
mm,
Um, what we recognize is that the Caribbean wants LA,
mm.
because we are the entertainment capital of the world. And
Yes.
so the idea behind CARICON is that we need to bring our stories where we can get them highlighted. And so we thought, why not do it in LA?
Yeah.
Now, the goal of CARICON is actually to travel to Caribbean islands.
Mhm.
But as we develop the product and we look at the logistics, you recognize that, for example, one of the places we're looking at is St. Kitts, for example. St. Kitts has 40,000 residents.
Mhm.
So you're looking at that and you're saying, okay, can St. Kitts support a 3-day conference? Probably not. You
Mm.
know, so those are the things that we're looking at and we're tweaking as we develop the product. But outside of that, the
Mhm.
base will always be LA. And
Mm.
so what do we have to offer in LA? We have the literary agents, we have the movie studios, and everything comes from stories. And
Mm.
so right now there is a demand for more Black stories, but also from a Caribbean perspective for our stories.
Mm.
One of the things that propelled us to start the conference is the fact that when we go to these other conferences, we're
Mhm.
always pushed to the back. And so it's like, oh, you know, you're just another number. We thought that we have contributed so much to the American landscape as related to literature,
Yes.
going back all the way from Claude McKay and all the others who have contributed to the Renaissance.
Mm.
And we're thinking that it's our time to
Mm.
take charge and develop what's ours. And
Yeah.
so this space is a space for Caribbean authors to promote, I would like to say, make connections, network, and also make deals.
Mhm.
The reason why we shifted from festival to conference is
Mm.
that there's several Caribbean literary conferences across the US.
Oh,
There's
okay.
not one that deals with the business of literature. And so
Mm.
that's why we thought we would be specifically positioned to help our Caribbean authors bridge that gap.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've been hearing from a lot of the authors is that they would like agent representation. And
Oh,
so we provide that as a part of our programming and our offering here at CARICON each year.
so you're providing agents for some of these authors as well.
Yeah, even last year while we had it online, we had you know, agents in house where people could make their pitches, a one-on-one consultation with agents.
Mhm.
And so that's how we're looking at it. Agents, also we're looking at not just the traditional way of literature, but how
Mhm.
can you take what you've already written in a book and transform it into another medium?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's where the future is,
Mhm.
which brings me to the fact that our theme for this year is the future is now.
Mhm.
Last year, the theme was explore the possibilities. And
Mhm.
so the way we're looking at it is if you've explored the possibility, well, all these possibilities as we've seen tell us that the future is right here.
Mhm.
So what does that future looks like for Caribbean literature? And
Mhm.
that's a question that we'll answer at this year's conference.
Oh, what does the future hold? I want to see as well because I've from what I've been following, you've been getting a lot of good pieces, man. My favorite one is Dr. Soli Ware. She talks about she gets kind of raunchy with her pieces, man.
You're talking about Dr. Asa Weir Soli.
As a
Well,
Ware Soli, yes, yes,
um,
yes.
Interestingly, I think in 2019 was the first time we introduced erotica
Mhm,
into the programming.
mhm,
Um, uh, the thing about it was that I got a call after the conference,
mhm,
and it was a professor from the University of the West Indies.
mhm,
She said to me, Steve, I didn't know that people were putting these things in books.
mhm.
Um, And then she went on to say, I enjoyed it so much that I had to get my girlfriends and have them rewatch the programming. And that was a programming with Dr. Azawir Soli
Mhm,
and Denisha, an author out of Jamaica.
mhm,
What we do is show that erotica and to an extent romanticism
mhm.
uh, is a part of our Caribbean lifestyle.
Yes,
The
yes,
difference is we don't talk about it, but
yes.
you hear it in our music, every line you go to, all those stuff. And so what we're doing is instead of shying away from it, we're bringing it into a discussion space where it can be consumed in a comfortable and I would say, natural way, because although the thing, again, it's subjective, because some people look at it as raunchy. Some people say the same thing we're talking about when we're talking about sparrow and sawfish and sapodilla and 9-inch banana. It's the same thing. So it has always been a part of us. It's just that we've always shied away from talking about it.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
We've always
I'm
couched
saying
it
that.
in
Go
different
ahead.
terms. We've always couched it in different terms. Like how you say, we put it in a calypso or a soca song, but
Right.
it's really the same thing. And I'm glad you're bringing that to life. I'm glad Dr. Where Soul is actually bringing that to life, because that's an important part of the Caribbean life.
Yeah.
We make fun about people who quote unquote horn or who sweetheart around people who have their mistresses and stuff like that, but that's a part of Caribbean romanticism. That's something that
Mhm.
needs to be talked about, and it shouldn't be anything that's made into an animalistic sense where it's so crude and so crass. Actually, there's a fundamental lifestyle position with the Caribbean, with this romanticism, with this eroticism, because we need to tell our story. We need to tell our story properly so people can understand it. We're not just animals out here. We're actually human beings, and we appreciate our lifestyle the way it is.
And the thing about it is, and what we try to do here at CARICON is we're unapologetic about our Caribbean culture.
Yes.
For many years, we have shied away from who we are, and
Mm,
everybody else come take our product, take our stories, and make them into something else, and
yes.
only then do we recognize that we have a product or have a story to tell. It's
Yes.
the same thing right now when you look at for example, you might have an idea and you go to the Bahamian government and you pitch them an idea. And
Mm,
they says, okay, you know what, doesn't make any sense. But
mm.
somebody comes from America and pitch it to them and they run with it.
They love it.
So it's that thing we're in that space. And one of the programs that we're working on for this year deals with some of those issues is, when do we recognize what we have and how do we embrace it? And
Mhm.
so that's why when it comes on to the erotica, when it comes on to pushing the envelope, we're not afraid to do it because it's about conversation. We like to say thought-provoking conversation. That's what you'll get at the
Yes.
conference,
Yes, yes, yes. We need to tell our own stories, Steve. And you're right. We
Yes.
need to tell our own stories, because someone will come in there with pitching, they make $1 million out of our own ideas. And I find us to be ripped off. And every turn we make, we got ripped off, man, for our ideas and for our
Property rights.
intellectual property. Yeah. And so you're doing a great job, man. But I think we moved too fast with this conversation, because I didn't get into who is Steve Russell. Where are you from, Steve? You're Jamaican, right?
I'm Jamaican. So yes, I grew up in Jamaica, studied at the Excelsior Community College. So my background is in theater and media arts.
Mm,
And then I came to the States, and from there I completed my BA in theater media arts, and then of course that propelled the venture out west. And so that's how I ended up in Los Angeles. So
okay.
yeah, so in a nutshell, that's who I am. I'm also an author. I
Mhm,
do write Anansi stories, and so I
mhm,
have series, 3 books, and also one in Spanish.
mhm.
And outside of that, as I'm in the entertainment field, so everything that, around entertainment is who I am, and I'm very, very vocal and very proud to be Caribbean. and
Okay.
of course Jamaican in the mix as well to just prepare our people and our culture.
So how did you like the transition from Jamaica to Los Angeles? I'm assuming you had a stop in between there, right? You went straight from Jamaica to Los Angeles?
Uh, no, I've been on a little trail.
Okay.
So the first place I ended up was in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Loved Philly,
Mm-hmm.
loved the history,
Mm-hmm.
hated the weather.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, I ended up in South Carolina, of all places,
Mm-hmm.
because I graduated from the University of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Loved it, but it was too slow for me. So I was like, okay, I got to go. I was like, when I was in South Carolina, I was like, oh, am I in America? Because different place. But I have family in Florida, and so I stayed in Florida for a bit and then headed west.
Edit
Uh,
right.
Los Angeles does remind me of the island
Mhm.
because it has a little bit of everything. It has the mountains, it has the beaches, it has even the desert. So, it's very island-like to me. And so
Okay.
that's why I like it out here.
But it must be really scary moving to Los Angeles from all the way from Jamaica because you're there by yourself. I mean, how does one become a nomad like yourself? Travel from one spot to the next. I'm too fearful to do anything like that. I'm a real coward at heart. This is as
No,
far as I know
no.
the confines of this podcast. I'm not as brave and as adventurous as people like you. So how do you put in your mindset that you're going to be a nomad? I'm just going to go from here to here to here, and I'm just going to make it wherever I go.
No, I don't think as West Indians we look at it like that. I think it's in our blood. We like to travel.
Mm,
Um, we like to carve out niches and spaces for ourselves.
mm,
And so for me, it was an easy decision. I'm already in the US. I mean, I love my people,
mhm.
but Florida reminds me so much of Jamaica. So I wanted that challenge. And so I was like, okay, because when you're in a place where you don't it's not too familiar, it
Mm,
forces you to perform. And
uh,
so that's why I thought, LA would be a great place. And
yes.
as it says, once you get here, you also understand that there are Caribbean people here, but it's so diverse, dispersed.
Mm,
And so that's also another thing that you have to work your way around. How do you connect with your people in the different places? Because LA, while small, is also large. There are
yeah,
several different cities, yeah.
I can imagine. That's my next question, actually. How do you find how's it finding Caribbean people in Los Angeles? I guess that must have been hard. People,
Not well. It depends. It's twofold
mm,
because the beauty of being in a place like LA is that you recognize your people by speech, or
mm,
you be here, you hear somebody like, okay, that must be a West Indian, so
yeah,
you turn, and so those connection happens.
mm,
Unlike, say, if you're on the East Coast where it's overly Caribbean,
mm,
then for the things that we take for granted there, we don't take them for granted here in LA, because there is an opportunity for you to develop a friendship, to partner and work on different projects and stuff like that. On
mm,
the East Coast, you're just like, okay, you take it for granted, the fact that you have Caribbean people around you.
yeah,
We transcend that into even the restaurants. They're sparingly, placed out here and stuff like that. And so we even appreciate that more. Where, for example, you might like some Puerto Rican food today. You don't always go Jamaican, because there are similarities there, and there's just that West Indian connection that
yeah.
keeps us bonded as a people.
Yes, yes, yes. That's good. That's good. So I guess your trail is a story within itself. You think you're going to write a story about how your travels were between Jamaica and Los Angeles? Is that going to be part of the Anansi theme?
Not so sure yet. I haven't thought about that, because there's so much other stories that needs to be written
Mm,
before we get to that one. But yeah, I guess the fact that I'm on the move,
mm.
I failed to start thinking about looking back.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I do enjoy the fact that I was able to be in all these places.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine, man, because your story is interesting, man. Because were you practicing your craft in each individual city you went from Philadelphia to South Carolina? So what kind of positions you have? What were you doing in between that time? You were working for theaters, or you were working for bookstores, or what were you doing?
When I was, well, there's a combination of both. Understand now the entertainment industry work, you're always doing something and something else.
Mm.
I guess what I failed to mention was that when I came to LA, for example, or prior to coming to the United States, I worked with sandals.
Mm.
So
Oh,
I
okay.
I was a sales and PR manager for sandals.
Mm.
And so
God
with
rest Gordon Butch Stewart soul. He passed away.
right.
God rest.
And even to this day, I tend to, when I talk to people, I pay a lot of tribute to Mr. Stewart.
Mm.
And even when you see the artwork and like what you're seeing behind me, this is our artwork for CARICON 2023.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that part of my marketing background and ideas I gather while working in sales and PR for sandals.
Mm-hmm.
Because I admire the fact that sandals as a robust PR. Like for example, I was at Sandals when 9/11 hit.
Mm.
And what Sandals did, they gave everybody who was staying at their property free vacation.
Oh, wow.
Everybody was like, wow, how do you do that? But Mr. Stewart has always been a forward thinking, long-term thinking person.
Mm-hmm.
And so he knew I might suffer during this short period, but people will remember the good you do when we're down. And so, it's ideas like those that I bring into the project that I'm working on here with CARICON, is understanding people and also understanding giving people value. And I think that's very important. So yeah, so I pay a lot of that, marketing, advertising strategies and stuff to Mr. Stewart. So I worked at Sandals, and then when I got to Philadelphia, I worked at a restaurant called City Tavern. And interestingly, it is said that that's where the U.S. Constitution was signed.
Oh, okay.
It's a part of the Independence Park, and you wear those British garters. And so it's, in a sense, I was in a theatrical live production. You got to wear those white and garters and stuff like that, those long white socks, all that good stuff. So that was my first entry into the work world in the US. And then when I got to LA, because of my experience in hotels, I was able to walk into an hotel, and immediately I was going from one interview to the next interview. I've almost been hired on the spot.
Wow.
And so of course, Sandals is a recognized name. So you see Sandals on a resume, you're going to be like, hey. And so I did that, and then that propelled me into accounting. So I also have a background in accounting as well.
Really? Theater and accounting, how does that mix? That's two things.
I guess they don't to an extent. The thing about it is, theater is a creative side, and oh, can we take a break?
Okay, no problem.
I know this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my nose is running.
No problem. You have a cold? Sorry.
No, it's not a cold. It's my sinuses.
Okay. Sorry, Steve.
Yeah. So we're gonna pick up from theater. So yeah, theater and accounting, where do they intersect? Theater is the creative side. Accounting is more technical. What I'm able to do is to mix both, because in business, and I think that's where we talk about show business. A lot of entertainers focus on the show and know nothing about the business. And so with me having that accounting background, I'm able to mix both and also help other authors and entertainers in general understand both sides. So that's where I'd say they collide.
Okay, that's good. So speaking about business though, what is the business of getting somebody published, especially these Caribbean authors? Because everyone who's coming to your CARICON, all the aspiring authors, they want to know how to get their books on bookshelves and in the hands of publishers getting published. What's the business? How hard is that getting getting books published in the United States?
Well,
being a recognized author.
I would say publishing, which is, getting the book out there is difficult. I myself, I do publishing for Caribbean authors. That started out of the fact that when I published my first book, I actually had to pirate my own book for myself.
Wow.
As a new author, we just want to get that book on the shelf.
Yeah.
And so throughout that process, we failed to look at, the little fine print. And so when I published my book, I published through a publisher called Outskirts Press.
Okay.
When the book was published, it was all, yeah, I'm a published author. I now join the ranks. But the backstory to that is that when each copy of my book was sold, I was only getting 50 cents.
Wow.
Now, the book is set for $14.95. So why am I only getting 50 cents when I did all the work, put the money up front to produce the book? I recognize that what they fail to tell you is, oh, you have to buy through them, you got to do this. And so after, say, for example, the standard in the industry is for a bookstore or a bookseller to take 40%.
Yeah.
So if you take 40% of that, you're left with 60, and out of that 60, you have to do the production part of it. And so what most of these, or I would say some of these publishing houses do is that they force you to buy the book from them. And so after all of that is divvied up, whatever is left over, that's your royalty.
Wow.
That was when my interest in book festivals started. And so I began to go to book festival to try to figure out, okay, if there are so many people are doing it, what is it that I'm missing? And I met a lady at the LA Festival of Books. And I explained to her what was happening. And she told me, she said, Steve, the only thing you can do to get out from under that publisher, because the ISBN is assigned to that publisher. So technically the book is that publisher's book.
Wow.
You're just an author. She says, the only thing you can do is change at least 20% of your content and call that book edition 2. And that was what I did, and was able to capture back my copyright to the book. And that was when I published it myself.
Okay.
And so from there on out, I have been publishing. I publish under Brian Nancy Press. And since then, I have helped publish quite a few authors.
Okay.
The most prominent one within my catalog is Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks.
Yeah, she's a good friend of mine now, actually. Thank you for introducing me to her, actually. She's on my WhatsApp. I'm going to invite her for a show next week if I could. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. She's superb.
Yeah, man. Wonderful lady.
Not very often you get to work with authors and persons of that caliber.
Yes.
When I invited her to the conference, I was surprised that she didn't have a book. So, I was like, oh, you're coming to the conference. I would love to, because I've known Dr. Meeks for years, growing up in Jamaica, I've always idolized, looked up to her and stuff like that. So, and plus we have also connected with the Anansi Soundsplash conference that she runs out of Jamaica.
Yes.
Fabulous conference that I suggest that everybody who gets an opportunity, go down to Jamaica and check it out. So when she came and she didn't have a book, I found that rather interesting. So I was like, no, I got to get you published before we get to the next conference. And so we started working then. And I think now we're on to book number 5.
Wow.
For her. And I've published authors out of Australia, the UK. And so that opportunity is there. Here's what I do. I haven't gone through the process and understand the hiccups out there. I try to make sure that all the authors that I publish have rights to their material. Yes. I go down the line and let them know, okay, you're not just, because another thing that people do is people will set their book price at $5. Well, you cannot set a book price at $5 when the bookstore wants 40%, and then you're going to pay probably $5 to produce the book. So it's all of those things that are taught when you come to a conference like ours, where we go through the whole process of, from start as a writer to production and beyond. And that's where the business side of the conference comes in. What do you do when you meet a literary agent? How do you approach a literary agent? How do you sell the rights to just the TV rights to the book and not the movie rights to the book? Those are stuff that, as Caribbean authors we don't think about, because growing up in the Caribbean, and authors was always a big thing. Oh, wow. Now that we have the opportunity to become published authors, we also now need to learn the business side to say, okay, I can maximize my work. I tell people all the time that a book might not make you rich, but what it does do, it gives you leverage. So when you walk into a room, it opens up doors. And so even myself as a storyteller and an author, I read more with my storytelling than with my book. You know, so somebody be like, oh, I'd like to book you for a storytelling session. Oh, I also have books. Do you like some books? You know, and so it's a packaging and the leverage that comes with it that we're trying to get authors to understand and market themselves in ways that will give them the possibilities of becoming bestsellers, as we mentioned.
Bestsellers, wow, Steve. But the way you made it sound as if like the publishing industry, something like the music industry, where these guys, they take most of your royalties, they actually take your work from you, and they own your property, and then you don't have any publishing rights. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because if you don't know what you're doing, and that's why some people need a team. We like to say, you know, some people are writers, as we says, they're not the business savvy. And so that's why you find that most people, once they get to a certain level, they bring in a literary agent or an agent in general or a manager to manage their asset, because, you know, most people don't also want to go with the back and forth, you know, the negotiation part of it. And, you know, so, yeah.
Because you need all your mind space to actually create works. You know, you can't be focused on the business all the time. You need to be in a particular space to actually be able to create. And that's important, man. So, wow, Steve, you're doing a great job, man. You're doing an amazing job, man. So tell us about some of the content that's going to be available at the CARICON this year. And tell us the dates and places, the dates and the venues for it too.
So CARICON 2023, the future is now, June 3rd through 4th. This year, we are on the campus of USC. We think it's a great synergy.
That's the University of Southern California.
That's the University of Southern California. Within that, I would like to say that corridor, we have the Natural History Museum, we have the Caribbean African American Museum, we have the Memorial Coliseum. So that area is already a prime area for anyone want to make the trip to LA. You can do a conference, you can do all the museums and all that stuff in that same belt. This year, we're doing the regular, the panel discussions, the workshops, book signing. We also getting back on the ground with our exhibits. And we're also adding our poetry slam, because last year we had our poetry segment, rum poetry and erotica.
Yes.
And that was so well received that we decided to open it up and put poetry slam as a feature on the CARICON calendar. And so we're doing the poetry slam, and then we're adding the music aspect. We did not want to go the route of a concert or the route of the carnival, because of course that's coming up later on in the month. We want to show the full Caribbean experience, and so we're adding a sound clash. And we know what a sound clash is like. Now, the way that we like to do it is we like to get all 4 language groups from the Caribbean represented, because a lot of times the Caribbean is defined as either Trinidad or Jamaica or Barbados or whatever. We are trying to make that known within the LA belt, that the Caribbean is more than any one island. While we have similarities and there are distinctive things about each island, at the conference, we never want to be looked at as this island or that island. That's the reason why this year we're bringing in our first focus island, which would be Trinidad and Tobago. A lot of people says, how did you arrive at Trinidad and Tobago? Well, what we have seen over the years is that we've always gotten a lot of support from the authors in Trinidad and Tobago. So we thought, what other way to introduce this segment into the conference by putting the focus on Trinidad. And outside of that, they have some great authors and poets.
Yes.
We've had Ingrid Prasad, and last year we had Monique Ruffy. So we know that by going to Trinidad with the culture and everything, it would be a great mix and a great combination to launch that side of CARICON. So in totality, that's what the 3 days of CARICON entail. We're also doing, as I mentioned before, the community aspect of it. So we have authors, storytellers coming from out of town. And so when they get to town, we like to get them immersed into the community. Last year, we had Judith Falone read, and we did an exhibit of her awe-inspiring Jamaica, which deals with her trip to Antarctica. And we did that at the Marcus Garvey School here in LA, and that was well received. This year, we have other personnel joining the crew. We have Malachi Smith. We're having Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks. We're having Heather Thompson out of the Bahamas, and Keisha Christie coming down from Canada. We're also having our partner Jamal from Fantastic Book Festival out of Canada coming down to, they're bringing down books and authors' books. So they'll be a big part of our exhibit. And then he's also a DJ with Trinidadian background. So he's also going to be one of our featured DJ at the Sound Clash.
A Sound Clash. Wow. That sounds strange, having a Sound Clash with a book festival, you know, I mean, with a book conference, you know. I mean, how do you think about all these things though, Steve? I mean, what ran through your mind when you said, I'm going to do this? First of all, what ran through your mind when you said you're going to actually start a Caribbean Literary Festival or Literary Conference? What ran through your mind?
Well, the way I look at it is, if not us, then who? So that's always my starting point. I never want to be in a position where, as Caribbean people, we're always begging for something, because we know that we're bigger than that. So my idea is, let's create our own. Only when we can create our own, then people will take us seriously. And as I've said, I've been to several conferences. You're not even there, so to speak. And so that's the impetus from where I normally start out. When it comes on to programming, I have a great programs director, Dr. Juanita Coleman Merritt. And then behind all of that, I have a great team of personnel working. So I just happen to be the face. But I have a lot of people offering suggestion. The starting point for me is the theme. And so the way I go about it is, I select the theme, I share it with the team, and then from there we build out. I'm also conscious of the cultural aspect of who we are as a people. And for me, that should never be compromised. And so when I'm developing a program, we're looking at those aspects. For example, as I said, we did not want to do a concert because that's familiar. I also did not want to infringe on the other activities that are coming up. And so we have what I consider a gentleman's agreement with the gentlemen and ladies agreement with the promoters of Caribbean American Heritage Month. So I'll call up Marva at Caribbean Caribbean Heritage Organization and says, hey, here's what I'm doing. We will bounce ideas. I'll call up the doctor, forget his name, over at the carnival, and says, hey, and we support each other. So last year, the carnival didn't happen, but they had a carnival concert. And so we don't want to, as I said, infringe on that. So we're looking at what other aspect of the culture brings us together. Sound Clash is ours. Red Bull has taken it and ran with it.
Red Bull? That's a major sponsor.
There's a Red Bull Sound Clash that has been happening for years.
Okay.
the beauty though is that they were generous enough to give homage to Jamaica, as to say that's where it all started.
Mm.
So we're looking at all of those aspects and saying if we're going to be different and at the same time familiar, what aspect of our culture do we want to share with a
Yes.
local or international
Yes,
audience?
yes, yes. And it's not just the music, it's the actual interaction with the DJs, isn't it? Right? It's the
Yes.
interaction. I remember my first sound clash I listened to, it was YGT versus Bodyguard. You ever heard of YGT, right? The famous
Yes.
Chinese Jamaican
Yes.
DJ. He was
Well,
on
we
the
don't say Chinese Jamaican, but
oh,
Jamaican.
you say
He's
Jamaican.
of
Okay, okay,
Chinese
fine.
descent.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, yeah, Chinese
yeah,
said, yeah. And he was such an
yeah.
oddity, man, but I just love the way he put his music together. And the arrangement was just so beautiful. He's my favorite all-time DJ, YGT, King YGT. He was the
Mhm.
first sound clash I ever listened to when he beat Bodyguard. And then I listened to him again when he lost to David Rodigan out of the United Kingdom. So I've been following this thing for quite some time when I was younger, but I kind of fell off of it now. But now I'm glad you're bringing this back to the fore so the world can see that the sound clash is something very, very important, Steve. It's something that's important to our culture because that sound clash that actually details our Caribbean culture. The clash
Exactly.
between, the clash in between people and in between cultures, and now it's taken all over the world.
But here's the thing too, Yuri, is
Mm,
that from time to time we are misunderstood
mm,
because of the way we speak,
yes.
because of the way we express ourselves.
Hmm.
And so even the fact that we're talking about a sound clash,
Hmm.
for most Americans, they probably think it's a fight, as
Yeah.
in, so that's our job.
Yeah.
Our job is to help educate
Yeah.
our surrounding about who we are as a people.
Yeah.
And we thought that what better way to do that than because people loves our music.
Mhm.
They love the soca, they love, and so even that part of it is that some people sometimes forget that Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, all those Spanish islands, and the French, Martinique, Guadeloupe, all those places are part of the Caribbean. And
Yes.
so what we're doing with the Sound Clash is we're bringing that in. We're having a DJ from Trinidad, we're having one from Belize, Jamaica probably not, because we know
Wow.
that one of them is going to bring that Jamaican thing to it, because
Yeah.
that's the things that we look at is we know Sound Clash is Jamaican from its birth, but
Yes.
Jamaica is always happy to share. As a
Yeah.
Jamaican, I'd love to, but so those are the things that we're looking at. How can we represent all four distinct language group and
Yes.
bring that together in music?
Yes.
One
Yes.
of the things that we're thinking about doing, the fact that we're focusing on Trinidad, is probably throwing in some Parang, because most of the people here don't even know what Parang is,
Yeah.
and so that's how we're able to entertain and educate our attendees about the different cultural pieces that each island is made up of.
Yes, yes, yes. The Parang music, yes. I have a co-host on Lime Vibe Live podcast. She's Trinidadian. Her name is
Mhm.
Kimmy from Calawan. She's been telling me about the Parang music and how much of an influence it's been on Caribbean soca in general, not just Trinidadian soca, but Caribbean soca and calypso. And so, yeah, she's amazing, man. And it's amazing they had a differences, because it's not all soca is not all soca, There's
Right,
and
right.
yeah, so it's these
And then soca, calypso, even chutney calypso, or
exactly.
chutney soca. People hear these sounds and they're like, "Oh, I hear some East Indian," but
Yes,
they
yes,
have no
indeed,
clue.
indeed.
Yeah, they have no clue how connected the Caribbean is, and so
Yes,
that's what we're trying to do when we design our programming.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's groovy soca. I didn't realize groovy soca was a thing until last week. Groovy
Mhm.
soca is an actual thing. I thought it was just something in a song. No, there is a genre called groovy soca, and it's
It's
a
soca.
mix of jazz.
Well, it's just like reggaeton,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
all that mixture, so yeah, so we're bringing all of that together. We have fabulous workshops.
Mhm.
We're looking at graphic novels as another thing this year,
Yes.
um, because as growing up in the Caribbean, we just see them as comics.
Mhm.
We grew up liking superheroes, not understanding that everything started on the page. And
Yes.
so that's another part of it that we're looking at in getting out to our people is look at where the trends are, where are we heading.
Yes.
One of the professor at UC Irvine who will be teaching that session was telling us about, you know, the different Caribbean authors who are in that space. So we already have some there, but we want to emphasize the importance and the potential to expand in a genre like that. And so we'll be bringing that to the forefront as well.
Gotcha. So what can authors who are looking to participate in the CARICON, what can they expect to see? What can they get for themselves when they come down to the CARICON?
Well, authors who come to CARICON, one will get the ability to network. Networking, as they said, your net worth is equal to your network.
Yes.
And so what we're trying to do is to put authors in proximity, where you can collaborate with other authors, you can meet literary agents, you can meet publishers, you can do meet booksellers, you know, because one of the things for Caribbean authors also is that quite a few of them are not even available on Amazon.
Wow.
And so how do you get your books into these spaces? I try to tell my Caribbean authors, don't be afraid of the Amazon. It's not, you know, don't be afraid of it. Because, and that's one of the things we're looking at. That's where the future is. So how do you make your work more available? Those are the stuff that we discuss. So when you come to the conference, you'll be able to make those connections. You'll be able to learn from other people. And in the long run, as we're saying, transform your work into different medium. Yes. We would love to see our stories being made into the movies, and that's what we're at. Every day you have different network out here looking for projects. They don't want the same old story. What we're saying to our Caribbean people, write our authentic stories, and then we go make them into the movies, into the superhero and hero films and stuff like that. So we're more than just the traditional, and that's what we're trying to do, open up that market and make it available to all our Caribbean in the diaspora.
Yes, open up the lane for everybody. Yeah, you're doing a great job, Steve. I gotta appreciate you for that. And actually, I want to thank you too, because I don't think I thanked you the last time, because but you know, we have a poetry contest and our short story contest, and I'm grateful that you allowed our top 3 finishes from the 2022 short story contest to actually be featured on the CARICON. So I appreciate you for that, Steve. Thank you so much, man. They loved it so much. They loved being on a showcase like that.
No, we were happy to have them. It was fabulous because when I read the winning story, Barracuda. Yeah, I was just like, wow. And you see, those are the stuff that I'm talking about. Growing up in the island, we always hear about the barracuda fish. And so that's what we're talking about. Be ourselves, be unique, don't be afraid to be, you know, who we are. And then we worked on the portrait collection.
Yes, portrait collection as well. That's right. And the book is out now, by the way, though. Signs of the Sun Volume 2. It's out on Amazon right now. I have the self-published, and maybe I can actually hand you a copy. You know, I'll send you a copy.
Oh, sure, I look forward to it.
Send you a copy.
I look forward to it. I enjoy participating in the selection process for the portrait. Fabulous pieces. Where am I from? You know, stood out. You know, and that's what I'm talking about. There's such great work in the Caribbean, and what we're doing here, and what other book festivals are doing is to bring that to the forefront. You know.
So one big question: How difficult is it, Steve, to get your story on the big screen? Because that's what everyone wants to think about, right? How am I going to get my story adapted to a big screen, either on a movie or even a television show? What's the likelihood of that? Tell the truth.
I always tell the truth.
Yes.
What's the likelihood of that? Everything is possible. Now, here's where I think we lack sometimes. Because likewise, like what we talked about with the royalties and the publishing, the same thing abounds on the movie side. So what we try to do here at the conference is to show you how to do your adaptation, where if you're taking that book and you're transforming it into a movie, then now you have a script that you can go around and shop. Now, There might also be investors that want to invest in something like that. So even among your peers at the conference, you can meet people who would like to collaborate with you in getting that out there. So
Yes.
I'm not saying that it's easy. What I'm saying is that we have to prepare ourselves for the possibilities.
I got you. And that's really where the money is, right? The screen adaptation. That's where all the lucrative,
Yeah.
side of writing is,
There's a lot of money in there. It's also expensive to do, and so that's why you need those connections. One of the things that a lot of people shy away from in the Caribbean too is children's book. That also has a lot of potential.
Children's books.
Yes, children's book. A lot of people think that children's book are not profitable, which it's not so, because in the children's book you have artwork, you also have the text. And so all of those can be replicated into products and stuff like that. So those are the things that we teach when you come to the conference. How do you maximize? As a publisher myself, when I sit down with an author, once the manuscript is done, the next thing we do is go through that book and see where can we monetize.
Yes.
So so we just don't put some pictures on the page. So for example, and I'm going to use Dr. Meeks as Exhibit A. In her first book, the shirt that Johnny wears, those stuff we went back and forth, and we're like, okay, how can we make this shirt appealing to our Caribbean people, or to people who would like to wear it? And so all of that comes through when the illustrator does the illustration, and then you build on that character over time. So those are some ways that you can pull that economic side out of kids' book. And graphic novels is the next big one, because everybody wants a superhero.
Yes. And when you say graphic novels, you really mean comic books, right?
Yes. See, that's what I'm saying. In the Caribbean, we call them comics. But yeah, those are the base for a lot of these stories. What I'd love to see, and what we're trying to encourage, is how can we take our culture and put it into another form that is appealing, palatable, and authentic. Because regardless of whatever graphic book or comic book you come out with, it has to be authentic. It has to be true Caribbean. That's what will set you apart from everybody else who's doing the same thing, Do
you think there would be a Caribbean superhero?
No, I think we already have a lot of Caribbean superheroes.
Okay, wow.
We just and that's where it is. Because superhero is subjective. I think our colonial past have taught us to look elsewhere for superheroes.
Yes.
But they're right there. I'm working on a series right now around what I like to call ancestral stories. The Tainos, for example, are superheroes. With the Maroons. So they're already there. There are people doing work on stuff like what we call the ghosts, duppies, or whatever. It's a part of our culture. They're different. You look at the Day of the Dead in Mexican culture, and you're like, wow, how did they get there? So those are the conversations that we're having when we meet at conferences like these and say, okay, how do we transform, or how do we repackage, or how do we look at other mediums for what we already have?
Yes. It's funny you said duppy, because the real name is Adobe, isn't it?
No, we say duppy in
Jamaica.
In Jamaica. Some people say ghost. Some people have different names in the eastern part of the Caribbean. So yeah, I think Lisa Levi, I think, did a story around something like that, and she's of Trinidadian descent, living in the UK. So there's a lot of work out there that is being done. I think what I fear is, for most of us in the Caribbean, is we don't explore, and that's the part of it that we're trying to say, hey, look at the different avenues that we can explore. We know we have some shortcomings, but we also have a vibrant culture,
Yes.
How do we package it? How
Mhm.
do we look at culture as a commodity rather than just something that we just throw by the wayside?
Yes.
For
Yeah.
example,
Mm.
you could write a kid's book about conch in the Bahamas.
Mm.
You know, you look at, again, I'm going to go back to sandals, but you go back to sandals in the exhumas.
Mhm.
Who have ever thought? You
Mm.
know, you look at the things that you do down there with the pigs in the water. You know, it's our culture. We just have to figure out how to sit down and use different mediums to tell our stories.
Yeah.
All of these are a part of who we are as Caribbean people. We have
Yes.
always shied away from that. And
Mm.
what we are saying here at CARICON is be proud of who you are, be proud to tell your own stories.
Yes. Yes. So tell us once again about the conference. Tell us where it's going to be and the times and date again, Steve.
So the conference dates are June 3 through 4. We'll
Mhm.
be at the University of Southern California.
Mhm.
And then we also be having our Sound Clash and our Poetry Slam at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. So we have two different locations that activities will be taking place of. As we say here at CARICON, we are a celebration of Caribbean literature.
Mhm.
And note the word literature and not books. It's a combination and inclusion of everything,
Yes. Yes.
literature. And
Yes.
we're always proud to sell the Caribbean because we are one people, one Caribbean.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Steve. You've been a great guest, man. I really appreciate it, man. You're really a vibrant mind, you know. They're going to talk about you for centuries down the line, like how you do Marcus Garvey and people like those, because what you're doing now is something amazing. And this is what we need. They're bringing everybody together, you know. So thank you once again, Steve, for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure being with you, Yuri. It's always is. Looking forward to it.
Yes, there we go. That's Steve Russell there, ladies and gentlemen. He is the director of the Caribbean Literary Conference in Los Angeles. That's going to be held in June. So I want to thank you once again for tuning in for another Line Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Yuri Kemp. And if you have not done so already, please like and subscribe our video on YouTube. It really helps us. It really builds our audience. And also go to our Facebook page, Line Vibe, and you can just click like on the video, or you can just click like to our Facebook page. It really helps us out there as well, too. So this is Yuri Kemp again saying goodbye. Thank you so much.